Hi, welcome to the Georgia Department of Education Orchestra Community. My name is Shawn Morton and I serve as our community moderator. So this time we're going to talk about how we can use our concerts and our evaluation process post-concert to help plan ahead and plan our instruction moving forward. So let's talk about our concert feedback and using that, and especially how we can engage our students in that concert feedback cycle. So with our students, one thing that's really helpful is to record your concerts to allow them to have time to listen and watch it back. Whether it's audio or video recording, I think video recording is especially helpful, but even audio recording. Oftentimes our students can remember sort of what happened at the concert, but in the moment it's really hard for them to track what happened, or they may remember something as much worse than it was, so it's important to be able to have that reference for them. Also, before they get into the evaluative process and really listening back, use it as a chance first to celebrate with them their hard work and how far they came and the success that they had. Our students are working really hard. They're preparing this concert. They're putting in a lot of effort, and we want to make sure we celebrate them and celebrate their milestones that they make along the way. So sometimes you could just use a first listening as a way to just enjoy the experience of listening, and then use your second listening with them to evaluate. But definitely find a way to make sure that you celebrate with them first before you get into having them deconstruct it for what they did well and what they didn't do well. Next, you want to give students a rubric or some kind of feedback tool, whether it's the LGPE rubric or something similar, to be able to give their evaluation on. So make sure that students also understand all those components of a rubric. So obviously you're going to scale this based on the grade level you teach or where your students are in the school year, but having them really understand the components that you're asking for in the rubric, and then have them use that to evaluate each piece or the overall concert. In general, the more specific you can have them make the feedback, the better, which is why the LGPE rubric makes a lot of sense, because it does it for each piece. But you have to really teach students what to listen for when we talk about tone or when we talk about good intonation or rhythmic accuracy. So sometimes that may involve you also going through a training process with them, maybe playing some examples of, hey, this is what good tone sounds like, or this is what good intonation sounds like, because what they may perceive as poor intonation because maybe there was a note that got yucky or a chord that got yucky in one place of the piece would overall be considered very, very strong intonation, just depending on your students. Generally, students are very hard on themselves and their group. So giving them some exemplars of what you're listening for and what you want them to listen for will also be helpful as you prepare to move them through this process. So have them watch the piece or listen to the piece, the recording of the piece, and then stop. So do a piece at a time, and that really gives them time to assess and fill out the rubric. And if there's something specific that you want to highlight or bring forth, then you maybe even could stop in sections of the piece. And then discuss with them what are the glows and grows, the positives and the negatives, the rose and the thorn, whatever little fun name you want to give it, but really go through it with the students, because oftentimes they have some really great feedback, and they also are at a place where they're able to give some meaningful feedback if you help them and prompt them through that. You have to sort of model for them what you mean by specific and meaningful feedback. So prompts can be super helpful. I'll show you some examples of some sample prompts you can use. You also want to make sure you're really clear with students from the beginning, not just single out any individuals. They are students, they are kids, and sometimes they make poor choices, or they can be really tough on their student colleagues. So just remind them not to do that, but help them to really think through that process and give them examples to get started. Exit tickets are great for this, especially if you just do a little bit at a time. If you're someone that uses journal entries in your classroom, if you're doing this assignment maybe while you're out, like as a sub-assignment, then you can use Jamboards or Padlets, sticky notes. So, as they're going out, they can do the sticky note wall. Google surveys, there's a lot of different options for you to get this information from students, but it's important that students become able to assess their own work and assess their group's work. And that way, too, you're building that independent musicianship, and you're also getting a chance to hear what are their goals, what are they wanting to do next. So some things to think about, or areas to evaluate, not just their knowledge and how it sounded, but also what improvements have they made? Where are they in the spectrum of improvement? How far have they come since the last concert cycle? What inspired them in this learning? So not just, okay, I've learned something, we sounded good, and we've improved a lot, but what inspired them as they learned about this piece, or they learned this piece? Maybe they were playing the, Richard Meyer's piece, Riding the Rails. Did they draw inspiration from the Swing Low, Sweet Chariot and what that meant in the context of that piece? Were they inspired by maybe a video showed them related to that piece, or what didn't give them inspiration? And then last, gratitude, making sure we remind our students to be thankful for their experience. Being in our classroom is such an important part of their school day for most of them, and just reminding them to thank their parents for that, as well as their classmates, and having gratitude for being able to make music together every day. So making sure we're not just stuck on this is good, this is bad, this is in tune, this is out of tune, but also kind of walking through that continuous improvement model, growth mindset, and being thankful for what we are able to do every day. So here's some prompting questions, and these are kind of based on different levels of students or where your students may be. So like, what are 3 things that you did well during the performance? That can be something personally related to them. What are 3 things you need to improve on? Those are great for exit tickets. What orchestra piece was your favorite? What did you play that you liked the most, and why was it your favorite? Giving them questions that make them expound and showing them how to expound, and then if they don't expound, making them redo it. Now with younger students, maybe giving prompts like, I was good at, next time I might, I still struggle with. Things like that may be more appropriate for less experienced students, or if you're just starting this process with students. What went well? What things might we do differently next time? How have we grown in this concert cycle? I think is really important, again, for students to have that growth mindset, to be able to look backwards and see where they came from. Who do we need to say thank you to? Was there administrators there? Were there teachers there? Were there family members there? Who do they need to be grateful for? What's next? So what are they looking forward to? What are they wanting to learn? What are their musical goals or their goals in your class next? And then what inspired you, or who inspired you during this learning process? So, there's different things that can make kids get excited about a piece of music, and they may not find that inspiration for every piece, but find something that inspires them so that they kind of have that to lean on. So these are just some prompting questions I think that we can use with students. I pulled these from all different places. These are ones I've used with students, and I find that, there's something here for everybody, but kind of know your students and know where they are. If this is your top ensemble that plays level 6 repertoire, then you can really deep dive into some of this. If these are your 6th graders and it's their first concert, the questions may need to be more prompted and a little simpler. So then after you've kind of collected student data and heard what they have to say and what they're looking forward to, then you have to also reflect on what you heard as the professional in the room. So I would say you need to take time to watch the concert on your own. While you conducted the concert and you were in the middle of the concert, it's always a chaotic time being in the concert. And so I think going back and listening for your own listening is also important, separate from the kids. So write down your feedback, go through and assess what went well, and go through the performance as if it wasn't your students performing. So if this was a group that you heard at LGPE, what would your comment be if you were the judge? What feedback would you want this group to have? What would you want this group to leave with, to improve from? And what do you think they're doing well? Create a list and keep a running list of what the musical skills are your students have and what should come next. So if you're familiar with Chris Selby, he does lots of great work in our profession. He's got a real gift for developing long-range plans and talking about planning long-range for our students. And so sort of creating the scaffolding of the old knowledge with the new knowledge and where students should be going. So always thinking ahead. And so to be able to develop those long-range plans, then you have to be able to look at, okay, what do our students know? This is where they are on this list of skills, and then that should help us plan what should come next. I generally have a feeling like at the end of the freshman year of high school, students that are not auditioning into higher levels as freshmen, but just like good 4th year players, they should be developing good vibrato at that point. So that's something that's in my long range plans. And that involves lots of little mini lessons along the way to get them there. But Making notes also of non-musical things that you thought went well at your concerts is important, and things that you thought didn't go well. Non-musical things can include audience behavior and their ability to be a good audience, which is part of our goals and objectives and our state standards. And, were students in uniform? Were students on time? These are all responsibilities to their ensemble. So making some notes along that way as well. Where did your students struggle in the concert cycle? So thinking through not only the actual concert, but as you think through however long your concert, let's say your concert cycle was 8 weeks, during this 8-week band of time, where did the students struggle the most? Was it at the beginning? Did they get sort of to the middle of the music and then kind of learn most of the notes, or then they kind of get stuck? And what caused that? Or did they get to did they get the music learned and then they kind of had too much time at the end of it? So what got them stuck and why? What motivated your students? Did your students feel more motivated when they heard the recording? Did they like it when you got faster? What got them excited about the piece or got them excited to continue forward? And sort of make notes of those things. And then think of the balance of your regular instruction and concert prep instruction. So by that I mean there's a difference when we're preparing for a concert versus when we're doing, working on skill-based learning, when we're doing fundamental time. That's different than concert prep. And we can do our regular instruction or our skill building to get into the concert music. That can be preparation for concert music, but really think about how you balance those two things. If you're spending 99% of your time concert prep, but not spending a lot of time skill building and then trying to do it in the context of the music, that can be frustrating for you and the kids. So just making sure you have the right balance, and that balance is going to shift based on where you are in that time of year. Obviously, if we're in performance evaluation season, that balance is going to shift more towards concert preparation and less on adding new skills. If you're maybe at the beginning of the school year, you're going to be more on skill building, less on concert prep. So different times of year will have that balance be changed, and also the level of student you teach will be a part of that as well. So just think about that and kind of keep that in the back of your mind. In addition, look at the goals the students wrote down. One thing I did as a young teacher that I wish I had retained and done more often through my career is I had students set goals at the beginning of the year, and I had them write them down, and at the end of the year, I pulled back out their goal sheet to see how they did, and have them, really set goals for each concert cycle. Look at what they want to do. Look at where they are. Most students have pretty realistic goals if you are showing them how to write goals. Help them get to those goals. Most of them are, if they're a third-year player, they're not going to write, I want to play the Brook Violin Concerto tomorrow. They're going to write realistic goals based on where they are in their learning. So help them with that and kind of revisit to see if that's going to shape what you want your students to do next. Also, take a chance on looking at new music and new opportunities for your students to kind of match with your programs. We know now there's so many new resources every year, so much new music. There's no way to possibly see it all, but try to add one new piece of repertoire that you've never taught before in a concert cycle, or come up with a way that you can challenge yourself so that you don't get stale. And oftentimes we do a lot of the same pieces every year because we know those are tried and true. Those pieces are tried and true for a reason. Our students like them, they have great success with them, but there's also great new pieces coming out. There's great new methods coming out. And so making sure that we're just staying fresh. And I find what helps me the most with that is having colleagues that I talk with on a regular basis and text back and forth with about orchestra stuff, just to kind of bounce ideas. And they're like, hey, have you heard this? Have you tried this? Oh, I'm having this problem. Oh, well, listen to what worked for me. So just having that network can be really helpful. Think about your pacing for the concert cycle. Was your pacing right for this concert cycle length? Like, did you program the right amount of music? And was it paced well? Like, were you kind of right where you needed to be by the concert time, or were the students not quite prepared? Was the ensemble where they needed to be? And then was the music too hard for the ensemble? Was it too easy, or was it just right? Finding that Goldilocks point. Sometimes we program a concert thinking about where that group is normally without thinking about who's in that group this year. Like, sure, my 8th grade is normally a level 3 every year, we think to ourselves. But this year's 8th grade, maybe they're really amazing and they're ready to do some 4s. Or maybe this 8th grade, maybe they're just struggling a little bit. Some years are different. And so making sure we program for the group in front of us and not the group we've had some other years. And then making sure that we've left time in our concert cycle and wherever we are during the year that students still have time to feel cared for and valued in your classroom. So if we're teaching so intensely all the time that we don't have any time for joy with students, we don't have time to have that engagement piece with students, the fun is kind of being sucked out of the room because you're so stressed about the music and you're forgetting to be able to do those things, then that may be something where you examine the pacing or the concert cycle length, or you adjust how many pieces you do. But at the end of the day, the students are in our program, yes, because they want to play music, but they're also there because it's a part of an overall experience for them. So just making sure that you're saving time to still engage with them and make them feel part of your program. So all of these things kind of help us reflect and then look forward to what we want to do next. What's your next set of goals? When you get ready, when this concert cycle ends and maybe you're turning around and starting a brand new concert cycle, what is important for you to do next with these students? And that way the students can go ahead and set new goals based on those goals that you're laying out for them, so that when you're done with that, then you can reflect. So it's this constant circle of, teaching, going through it, performing, and then reflecting on what needs to be revisited and then what you can move forward from. So I would love to hear how this works well for you, how you've engaged students in your classroom as far as giving feedback after a concert. It can sometimes be frustrating because kids are so hard on themselves, but if you found a great way to get kids to give feedback or a goal set for you, that would be great to share. And also how you use your concerts to really share back and get you ideas for what you want to do next. So drop that in our group discussion post, and we hope to hear from you.